discovered a hidden letter in my late grandfather's attic, unraveling a family secret that changed everything I knew about my heritage and my identity forever. So yesterday, I overheard a call between my fiancée Amanda and my brother-in-law Mike, which signaled to me that in all likelihood Amanda was helping her sister Emily hide an affair from Mike. I really tried to ignore what I heard and pass it off as coincidence, but I simply couldn't that night. I couldn't resist the urge to check Amanda's phone. I grabbed the phone, retreated to the bathroom, and unlocked it. That's when I saw Amanda's sister Emily has been having an affair for about 6 months with a coworker, and Amanda has been helping Emily cover it up for almost that entire time. There are literally hundreds of texts between them discussing it, discussing the coworker, discussing intimate stuff, mentioning really embarrassing things about my brother-in-law like comparing his PP size, just stuff that makes my stomach churn. And here is my soon-to-be wife going along with all of it without batting an eye. I took some screenshots of the entire thread, put the phone back where I found it. The next day, I decided to take the day off work and go to Mike's house to let him know I got to Mike's house a little after 10 a.m., had just put his daughter down for a nap, and we had a long, frankly brutal talk in the kitchen. Basically, he suspected this for a couple of months now, but Emily has been very good at covering her tracks, obviously, with the assistance of Amanda and a couple of their mutual friends. I unfortunately do not have all 6 months of text messages, just a couple of dozen screenshots I sent to myself from Amanda's phone. But I gave him what I have and offered to help him however I could. I am a field analysis in the SIU department of a mid-sized insurer specializing in workers' compensation fraud. So I know a few things and a few people. I'm going to have to talk to Amanda this evening and get the word out as fast as I can to my friends and family now that I know I won't screw Mike over update 1. Mike asked for my help in finding out who the other guy was that Emily was cheating on him with. The first thing I did was not some major amount of sleuthing. It was basically just going through LinkedIn, trying to find the guy through Emily's connections. But that brought up nothing which I thought was strange. Mike had told me that Emily was supposed to go out for drinks tonight after work, and that she said she wouldn't be home until around 10 o'clock. He didn't have to tell me what he suspected since I pretty much understood right away. I told him that I would help him, but he needed to come with me. I then contacted my buddy Dave, explained the situation to him, and had him agree to meet us later in the day. The first thing we did was drive over to Mike's parents' house so that they could watch their granddaughter. I don't know what Mike told them as I waited in the car. After that, we went to Emily's place of work. We drove around until we found Emily's car, and then I had Mike unlock it with the second set of keys. I then gave Mike a voice-activated recorder and a GPS tracker to place in the car. Once done with that, we left parked a bit down the street and waited for my friend to arrive and for Emily to leave the business. My friend Dave shows up about 20 minutes later, hops in the car with us. And around an hour after that, Emily comes out of her office with 2 of her girlfriends and a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. They are obviously holding hands, and I'm like, damn, Emily, you're making it easy for me. I take a couple of pictures from the car and then wait for Emily to leave in hers, and I start tracking her. At first, I thought she might go right to a hotel or something, but she didn't. Instead, she drove to a reasonably nice bar and grill in a nice section of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she was getting out of her car and entering the establishment, then found my own parking spot and went over the plan. First, we sent Dave, and since no one knew him, he had basically 2 jobs. First, try to get any compromising pictures he could of Emily and Jake, and second, to be my alibi. Mike and I waited in the car for around 20 minutes until I got the first in a series of text messages from Dave. They were pictures of Emily and Jake making out in front of their 2 female coworkers. Mike's suspicions were right. They were helping Emily hide the affair from him. He was obviously very upset and angry. Evidently, one of the coworkers is married, and as a couple, they are good friends with Mike and Emily. I asked Mike if that's enough for him, but he says he still really wants to know who this guy is. I try to tell him that we can find out later, but he's practically begging me at this point. So I tell him to wait, text Dave that I'm coming in, and then enter the bar myself. The first thing I see is Emily and her crew laughing and drinking at one of those tall round tables near the front window. As I enter, I stop for a moment, pretend to be surprised, and then call out to Emily, "Emily, hi, what are you doing here?" She's obviously shocked to see me, and everyone around her tenses up immediately. Emily quickly introduces me as her sister's fiancé and says that we are getting married in 2 weeks. There are a lot of congratulations from everyone. I thank them, and then stick out my hand to the blonde guy and introduce myself with my full name, hoping that he'll respond in kind, and he does. I introduce myself to everyone else, and then tell Emily that I'm here to meet a coworker. I wave to Dave, and then excuse myself. Once I get over to Dave, I tell him the guy's name, and we both whip out our phones and go to work. It doesn't take long for us to find him. He's got social media profiles and a couple of court case judgments against him. It turns out that Jake, the guy Emily is cheating with, is 26 and married. This just keeps getting better. I text Mike the guy's name, and I decide I want to push my luck and tell him to wait a few more minutes. Basically, I'm playing babysitter here at the bar. I'm totally visible to Emily and her crew. I can see out of the corner of my eye that no one is particularly happy about this, and my presence is really ruining the night. This is good. I'll let this go on for about 10 minutes, and then tell Mike to text Emily that he's spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. It doesn't take long after that until I catch Emily taking out her phone, showing it to Jake, and then everyone decides to pack up. Emily comes over to me, says good night, and asks me if Amanda and I want to come over for dinner this weekend. I smile and say that sounds like a great idea and wish her and her coworkers a good night. Dave and I wait for them to leave, then pay our bill and hurry back to the waiting mic. There's a bit of hesitation here because we don't know exactly what Emily was going to do. I half assumed she might have already booked a hotel room and was heading there, which would have made everything a lot more complicated and limited what I could do. But it turns out that tonight was probably meant to be just drinks at the bar, and it wasn't until Mike decided to spend the night at his parents' that it turned into something more. Emily made a beeline for home, and we followed behind her way out. Time had left my mouth, but I just wanted to drive the point home. Sarah's eyes widened, and her face went pale. Evelyn looked at her sister with a mixture of confusion and horror. Sarah's sobbing intensified, and she stumbled back, collapsing onto the couch. You canceled the honeymoon? How could you? How could you do this without talking to me first? She wailed. I had to make a decision, Amanda. I replied, using her full name to add a touch of formality to the conversation. This whole situation has shown me a side of you I can't ignore. You've been lying to cover for your sister's betrayal for 6 months. How can I trust you? Evelyn, who had been mostly silent, suddenly spoke up. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm sorry for everything, but please don't punish Sarah for my mistakes. I looked at Evelyn, then back at Sarah. This isn't just about you, Emily. It's about trust and honesty. Amanda, you kept this from me. You lied to me every day for 6 months. Sarah's sobs became more controlled, though tears still streamed down her face. I did it to protect my sister, Jason. I didn't know what else to do. And what about me? What about our relationship? Did you think about how this would affect us? I asked, my voice steady but full of emotion. Sarah shook her head slowly. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time. I see now that I was wrong, but please, Jason, don't throw away everything we have over this. I sighed deeply. It's not just this, Amanda. It's the principle of it. I need someone I can trust completely. Someone who values honesty as much as I do. This isn't it. I turned and started to leave the room. I'm staying at a friend's place tonight. I'll come back for my things later. As I walked out the door, I heard Sarah call after me one last time, her voice breaking. Jason, please don't go. We can fix this, please. But I kept walking, the weight of my decision pressing heavily on my shoulders. I knew it was the right thing to do, but that didn't make it any easier. Second, it left my mouth, and the explosion was damn near immediate. Lucy, to her credit, had always been pretty quick on the uptake, which is probably how she had managed to fool her husband for so long. I could almost see the realization dawning on her when she put it all together with my appearance at the bar earlier in the evening. She screamed, "You mother," and flew across the room at me. Now I'm not a huge guy, but I'm no slouch either. But the force that Lucy flung herself at me had me staggering backwards, and I barely had enough time to get my hands up before she started raking my face. I almost lost the phone I still had in my hand, but still managed to push her away and say very loudly, "Lucy, get off me. Alice, get your sister under control." Lucy made another lunge for me, but surprisingly, Alice did exactly what I asked her to and wrapped her arms around her sister's waist and held her in place. I looked at Lucy and yelled, "Get out of here right now, or I am calling the police," holding my phone up for emphasis. Alice asked both of us to calm down. She said to me, "Lucy doesn't have anywhere to go right now, and Henry took her car keys." I did not care. I was 100% through with Lucy, and I was going to make sure she knew it. I marched into my home office, locked the door, and dialed the police. I told them I had been attacked by my fiancé's sister, and had locked myself in my office, and I feared for my life. I even told them that I had recorded the entire altercation on my phone. Just as I was finishing up my conversation, Alice came knocking on the door. "Please come out, we need to talk about this. And please, I love you, don't do this, we don't need to do this. And even Lucy is sorry. She wants to apologize." I'm pretty sure that last one was a lie, but Alice was obviously losing it. I didn't answer her, and her attempts to cajole me out of the office ended probably right when the police arrived at our front door. I could hear Alice talking to them, and I decided to come out. The cops were two males. One of them looked younger than me, maybe around Alice's age, and the other one looked older and more annoyed about life in general. I introduced myself, pointed at Lucy, stating that she attacked me, and offered to show the cops the recording I made. The younger one asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. He asked me again if I wanted to press charges. I said yes again. At this point, both cops looked at each other, and before the young cop could open his mouth again, I said yes, I want to press charges. I have video evidence, and this is going to court, or else I'm going to call up your boss and ask him to come down and do it himself. Honestly, at this point, I was getting pretty hot under the collar, and while I get what these guys were thinking, I don't agree with it at all. Facts are facts. Sure, I might not be bleeding out on the floor, but Lucy attacked me in my own home, and I wanted her gone. Thankfully, the situation didn't immediately escalate, and the two officers handcuffed Lucy and put her in the back of the patrol car. She was squealing and crying like some sort of gibbering maniac the entire time. Alice wasn't much better. She just kept going, "No, please no," over and over again. At this point, the younger cop circled back and asked us if everything was okay here. I just told him I was going to bed. He asked Alice again, and she didn't immediately answer. So he goes, "Is everything okay here, ma'am?" It was clear what he was fishing for. At this point, I really disliked this guy, but I bit my lip. Alice finally realized that the cop was addressing her, and she just nodded at him. Obviously, the guy was not satisfied with this, and started to ask her again, at which point I interjected and firmly said, "Officer, everything is under control here. I appreciate your concern, but there's nothing more to discuss. If you want to go on a fishing expedition, you might want to do it over there on the lawn where my doorbell camera isn't recording you." I think at this point, I had pushed my luck with this guy one too many times, but what could I do? I think I was probably about 45 seconds from getting the cuffs slapped on me until his partner came up and basically pulled him away. He was an older man, probably in his early 60s, and likely didn't want to process two arrests right at the beginning of his shift, especially when one of them was obviously going to be more trouble than it was worth. I'm pretty sure he talked him out of it, and they left carrying Evelyn away and hopefully out of my life forever. The next day was by far the weirdest day of my life. I woke up and Alice was still home. She had cleaned the house from top to bottom. When she saw me, she sort of hovered out of immediate range, not quite engaging, but looking like she wanted to say something. I took a deep breath and told her we needed to finish talking. She tried to sit next to me on the couch, and I thought about rebuffing her, but I didn't. We were not getting married, but I didn't need to act like I hated her, because truthfully I didn't. I was disappointed in her, decently disgusted by some of the things I had read in her text exchanges with her sister. But we were both hurting here, and I didn't want to make it any worse or escalate things to a point where life could get any more complicated than it already was. It took some more convincing on my part for Alice to truly and fully believe the wedding was off. She was a wreck. I think she was hyperventilating a few times. Finally, she asked the serious question, "What about us?" I truthfully didn't have an answer for Alice in that moment. I just didn't know, and I told her so. I said I read all those text messages, and it showed me a side of you that I didn't know existed. And now I'm not certain about you or our relationship anymore. I said I couldn't understand why she would go along with Laura putting down Mike and joining in, and even egging her on and cheating on not only him, but their daughter too. She just kept saying, I know it was wrong, I know. I asked her for an explanation, but she couldn't provide one. She just said that she got carried away and that she had to choose her sister. I told her that I thought a good sister was someone who kept you on the straight and narrow, and didn't give you a free pass to do that. She agreed with me and said that she would do better, but that Laura had always been the boss when they were kids and she was always the follower. Now here is where I get the second major shock of my life in like 96 hours. Alice says to me, "It's not fair, it's not fair, what's not fair?" I ask her, "You were texting that woman Mandy on Instagram last year, and I got over it. I was so hurt, but I got over it. Why can't you get over this?" "Why? How what? What the hell are you talking about? Who is this Mandy?" I had no clue. I asked her if she was having a psychotic break. I'm protesting pretty loudly at this point, and Alice is yelling at me through her tears, telling me that she saw the messages last year and that she decided not to confront me because I had stopped it. Evidently, she had been checking my socials from my home computer when I was at work, which should have been really boring because I have only family and a couple of work friends on there. I tried to make this case to her, offering to let her log into all my accounts and check for herself. But she's just calling me a liar and a creep and all sorts of crap. She starts throwing stuff at me, and so things are escalating fast, getting out of hand. And I tell her that if she throws one more thing, I'll have her taken out of this house just like her sister. She swears at me and stomps off to the master bedroom and slams the door. At this point, I am so damn confused I barely know what to think. I head into my office, fire up my desktop, and type stupid wife Mandy into Google. Sure enough, there is an Instagram, a Twitter, a Reddit, and of course an OnlyFans. I click on one of the Instagram links, and up comes a post of an extremely honored woman clearly pushing the limits of science and technology. And she's from Australia. My brother was staying with us last Christmas, all the way from Australia. Guess who I told? Sure. Go ahead and use my office computer to play games if you have jet lag. As far as I can tell, my brother, after his wife and kids went to sleep, logged into either Insta or OnlyFans, and was probably paying money to text with this girl. What a great guy. Update 3, I decided to carry on with what I needed to do. First thing up was attempting to contact every person from my side that I had invited to the wedding that I had not yet informed about its cancellation. I called everyone and had to explain it to everyone, which took a long time. Because of this, it wasn't until late into the evening when I finally managed to contact everyone. After this was done, I thought about it and realized I had no idea when she left and sat down to eat and think about what to do with my brother Carl's situation. Carl and I have always been pretty close despite him being 15 years older than me. I respected him greatly for taking care of me when I was young. The idea that he had been texting with a girl who wasn't his wife in my house was something that I was still coming to grips with, and I needed to decide what to do. Talking to him about it was obvious, but at this point, given how much of a shambles my relationship with Sarah was, I didn't know if I cared about having him confess just for the sake of clearing my name. Was there anything to salvage anyway? I needed to, for my own sake, at least yell at him about this and convince him to stop. However, I wasn't sure if I was going to rat him out or not to Karen. It all depended on what he told me and if I believed him or not. I logged into Facebook and video called Carl, and he answered. We greeted each other, exchanged some pleasantries, and then I just sort of dove into it and asked him if he had been using my computer to chat with women on the internet when he was visiting me. Carl's face froze, and he leaned over out of the frame of the camera. He was obviously closing his office door. Yeah, I did. Why? He said to me. I swore under my breath and explained to Carl how Sarah had thought that his flirting was me since he used my computer. I explained that I wasn't happy to take the hit for him, and I asked him point blank if Karen knew about this or not. He waffled for a few seconds, stumbling over his words, and then looked a bit sheepish and said that no, Karen didn't know, and he'd prefer if it was kept that way. He went on to explain that their relationship had been pretty rough since their youngest was born 4 years ago, mainly in the bedroom department. Carl had always been a pretty private person, especially when it came to intimate details, or at least he had always been that way when talking to his much younger baby brother. However, this time, he just let it all lay out. Things had been bad. He had been tired of getting rejected. Karen was always tired, no matter what he did or how much he helped out around the house. Eventually, this led to problems on his side, some sort of performance anxiety on the few occasions where Karen would actually feel up for some bedroom fun, and things just got worse from there. Basically, he had been resorting to chatting with women online to feel something, anything that made him feel like he wasn't completely worthless. I listened to him spill everything, feeling a mix of anger and sympathy. It was a mess, a complete and utter mess, but at least now I understood where he was coming from. Said there's no amount of socks picked up, laundry folded, dishes washed, or time spent minding children that would get me anything. It was just not happening. So I started to spend time in my office at night working. He even did the finger quotes when saying this. Evidently, his working at night turned into a pretty hardcore dependency on certain websites, which, given the relative privacy he had in his office for legitimate work, spiraled out of control pretty quickly. I asked him if he was still doing it, and he swore up and down that he wasn't. I thought I believed him when he said it. He seemed to be sincere, but I just had this feeling in the back of my skull that something was off. Now, the problem I faced was pretty complex here. First, if I wanted to clear my name, then I would have to get my brother to tell Sarah that it was him all along. However, if he did that, then there was no guarantee that Sarah wouldn't spitefully inform Karen. I personally thought it would be best if Karen knew, but at the same time, I didn't know if I felt comfortable potentially dropping a nuke on my brother's marriage over something he not only said he stopped, but is in this sort of moral gray area for me. I didn't have an answer right away as to what to do, but I did urge him to tell his wife about this and to get into marriage counseling. He said that they actually had been going for the last 8 months. And while it was helpful, what had really helped him was getting a prescription for some generic blue bedroom pill. I actually did a spit take at that, neatly spraying my computer screen with water. He told me that they had been trying to make sure they have intimate time at least a couple of times a week, and the pill had cured him of his performance anxiety to the point where now they were both looking forward to spending time together after the kids went to bed. The general gist of this was something along the lines of, "Hey, this is actually going in the right direction now. Please don't screw this up for us." I really didn't want to be in this position, not just for the sake of Carl and Karen, but for my 2 nieces as well. And if what Carl was telling me was the truth, I could be tossing a firebomb into a relationship that was starting to mend. I was, after all, going to meet him in a couple of weeks in the flesh. And once I got him alone in a room and a few drinks into him, I was going to definitely get to the bottom of this. It seemed like the best course of action anyway. That night, I went to bed early. I didn't see Sarah until the next morning. She looked haggard, like she had a distinct lack of sleep. I asked her where she had been, mostly out of habit. After all, we had been together for almost 8 years. She told me that she had gone down to the courthouse for Evelyn's arraignment to post bail, and that afterwards she had driven her to her parents' house and spent the night. She made a point of telling me how horrible it was to have to explain to her parents that I had called off the wedding. I asked her if her parents knew the reason why, and she barked, "Of course they do." I tried to remain calm, but by this point in this ordeal, I was losing it. I bit back at her. "Are you going to move back there so that they have both girls at home now?" It was childish and petty, but the fact that she bailed Evelyn out of jail annoyed me to no end. "You don't need to be like this," she said, to which I replied, "And you don't need to be Evelyn's underling." Emily decided to continue talking. "Our parents are going to be here at 5 o'clock. I actually face-palmed at this. I was about to go off on her for not consulting me on this, but decided that was just my own ego. After all, I didn't need to sit down with them and work out the details around the wedding and whatever remaining deposit we had. I needed to at least once, face-to-face, explain to everyone why it wasn't happening. 5 o'clock came, and so did our parents. The next 5 hours were grueling. No one was happy. The best support I could get came, unsurprisingly, from my own parents. But even that was tempered. Eventually, we worked out a decent deal regarding the wedding. We would try to get back whatever money we could, split it back however it was contributed, and then eat whatever losses there were communally. However, when it came to the subject of the house, Emily vehemently objected to my idea of paying back her or her parents for the deposit. Basically, she didn't intend to move. Emily and I hadn't really talked about the U.S. or us living together situation in too much detail. The fact that I even brought up settling the house equity seemed to shock her, because the implication here is that I expect her to move out of our home. She threw a fit, and I don't blame her. I should have settled our relationship status with her first before trying to negotiate a payment plan with her parents. It really tipped my hand to everyone about how I was feeling about our relationship. While I think our parents expected it, or at least understood, Emily was beside herself. She was absolutely not accepting of us breaking up over this, and she made it clear. "I'm not moving out of my house, and we are not breaking up," she declared. And that's pretty much how my Sunday night ended. After our parents left, Emily and I tried to talk it out some more, but we kept running in circles around each other. I had to curb my natural inclination to run her down until we got a resolution. Truthfully, I was pretty damn tired as well, and I just wanted to turn off my brain. Believe it or not, we just ended up sitting on the couch and watching a movie together in silence until it was time to go to sleep. We left it there with a "well, talk about it more tomorrow," and retreated to our separate rooms. On Monday, I woke up to a large handwritten letter slid under the door from Emily. I took a brief look at the first few pages and decided I would deal with it later and went to work. When I left, Emily was still in bed. She must have been up late writing that letter. At work, I started calling vendors about the wedding. During the day, between making calls and doing work, I read Emily's letter. It was a 25-page handwritten letter. The gist of it was that Emily felt pressured by Chloe to go along with the affair, and that she has always been such a people-pleaser that she found it extremely hard to say no to Chloe. I reflected on this a lot because, truthfully, when I look back at our relationship with a more critical eye, I kind of think that Emily was a bit too perfect of a girlfriend. What I mean by that is she never disagreed with me, never picked her plans over mine, or even really advocated too strongly against anything I wanted to do. She went out of her way to make herself appear useful, and all around acted more or less like a yes woman in our relationship. I mean, we had never even so much as had a minor disagreement in 7 years, let alone a full-blown argument until now. It sounds great from a relationship standpoint until, of course, it's not. I couldn't shake this feeling that Emily has this deep-seated insecurity and need to make people happy. When I start looking at it this way, a lot of things make sense to me. And I start to realize that despite being with Emily for 7 years, I don't actually know her that well. It's like she's put up this image around her, which is really just a mirror, a reflection of whatever she thinks people want to see. And in the case of our relationship, she's more or less been acting my role of the perfect girlfriend while never really letting me inside to see who she is as a person. Hell, I can't even say that what I saw in those text messages is the real Emily, because it's almost certainly just another reflection, this time of Chloe and all her warts and faults. This may sound weird, but it's like we are in this unequal relationship, whereas maybe she loves me for who I am and how I wear my thoughts on my face and my heart on my sleeve, but maybe I only love her for the mirror she is holding up to my face. That night we talk more about this. Specifically, the conclusion that we came to is that she needs help. She's a grown woman who is too scared to displease anyone, lest she face her sister's wrath or her parents' disapproval, or the loss of love from the one she loves. This is no way to have a relationship, and I can say that I feel much more confident and assured that my decision to call off the wedding was the correct one.